Just beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. All right. The nearly Reverend Rachel. She's ultra close. So we're already calling her Reverend because she's going to be a Reverend. She's amazing. She just finished graduating from the School of Spiritual Leadership in June, and she's going to complete her oral panel soon, and we're one of her first coming out party right here. Woo! We get to celebrate. And in case you don't know, we're all about you bringing your passion here and bringing it to life. That's why we light the world on fire. And Rachel's going to do that this morning. She spent over 25 years as an executive producer and director of operations and chief of staff for a company called, get this, Big Fish Games. That sounds awesome, doesn't it? Big Fish Games. And they did some amazing work. And she's bringing all that into this movement, all that knowledge and power, and combining it with this spiritual presence as well. Her new role is Next Gen Retreat Manager for the whole country, working with Ty, of course. And the ministry is focused on young adults and the evolution of how spirituality shows up as CSL. She loves to teach, talk, and learn. And without further ado, let's welcome the amazing Reverend Rachel.
Thanks. He gave me a "you go, girl." That was pretty cool. Oh, it's so great to be here. I've been here once before when there was a panel of Next Genners talking about the retreat, and it was really an amazing experience. I fell in love with the community and the sanctuary and the vibe here, and I'm really, really excited to be back. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm just going to jump right into a little story of something that happened to me recently. I was at the grocery store. And I want to say, what is it about grocery stores and freeways for spiritual lessons? It's like holy land, you know, just every time. And I was going to my cousin's for dinner, and I was buying some salad stuff. I was going to bring a salad, and I was running late. And I was at a grocery store that didn't have self-serve, and there was one line. And there was a few people in the line, so I got to go. And the person that's talking to the cashier is talking, and they have like 1,000 little items, and they're sort of telling their life story, and the cashier is super engaged and asking questions, and they're having a conversation. And my heart starts beating, and I'm like, what now, really? I mean, come on, I got to get over to my cousin's house. And then I had this little tap on the shoulder, and I'm someone that hears a voice from Spirit when I'm getting a message, and Spirit said, what if that woman is the one person in this store that needs to be seen today? And in that instant, everything shifted for me. And I looked at her different, not as an obstacle, but as a soul. And that's when I realized decoding the unlikable is not about changing the other person. It's about changing me and where I've forgotten love, even in a brief moment like in a store. We all know how to love the lovable, right? Oh, we all love each other, and we love our family and our partner and the person that smiles at us and opens the door. That is really easy. But what about the ones that challenge us and trigger us and work our last nerve? What if they run? What is this about? Okay, these are the ones where we need to learn how to decode the unlikable. So the invitation today isn't just to love them, it is to decode what's happening to us when we feel out of reach, because that's where transformation happens, on the edge of our comfort zone. So we're going to explore love, universal, divine love, and help see the sacred in the difficult, because love replaces judgment. So decode the unlikable. Those words, that phrase isn't something I've heard a whole lot in Science of Mind. What I mean is to decode and translate judgment back into understanding and resistance into love. To decode is to see through appearances, sort of what your reading was saying, to recognize that what we call unlikable is often just the mask that love wears. And it's been forgotten. It's a spiritual practice of reading life through the lens of oneness instead of separation. So let's just talk about personal dislike, preferences, versus inherent unlikability. So often we think if we don't like something, it must be inherently unlikable, right? Because we don't like it. Really, though, nothing is truly unlikable. Every being has personal preferences that result in likes and dislikes. And while there's nothing wrong with having preferences, actually we need to have them. It's how we live our lives. As a challenge arises when we turn those preferences into a place where we can sit in judgment of others. And that's when we become separate or feel separate. We never become separate, but where we feel separate. So by working to notice this and detach from our preferences, not to release them and not have them, but to detach from them and recognize them as personal preferences, we discover that many people love things that we don't. So this helps us become more accepting, create an inclusive world, and realize that it strengthens our relationships and helps us appreciate that different personal likes and dislikes create a diverse environment, and that's a good thing. So if we examine the nature of love itself, we are part way to releasing judgment and accepting people and things as they are. Our personal dislikes don't diminish others' rights to exist. So, love is not an emotion alone. It is a unifying power of spirit. And sometimes the way I'm able to release judgment and turn that into love is if I'm having an issue with a particular person, I try to see what are their intentions? Where are they coming from? So a couple years ago, I had a boss who, I could barely stand to be in the room with this person. He was very, very intense, and he always thought he was right. And I actually went to the head of the department and asked to be moved off his team, and I was denied. So I had to sit with that and say, okay, why is this happening? What am I here to learn? I can't move teams. I can't avoid this situation. And so I really just began to look at who he was and where he was coming from. And he was a smart person, and I saw that he really, really, really wanted to do a good job. And he really, really wanted to be a good manager. And I started this internal little monologue when he would talk, when he was getting too intense, and I'd be like, well, isn't that interesting? I wouldn't say it out loud. But but I was trying to sort of detach from my judgment, And I got to the point where, honestly, I really like him, and we became friends. And he became a pretty good manager, too. So that was a good experience for me on translating judgment into love. That openness is where transformation begins. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, reminds us that love isn't something you manufacture, it's something you remember. This is a quote from Holmes. Love is the greatest thing in the world. Love is the greatest thing in the world. It is the only thing that can heal and transform. Love is the essence of the divine. And when we align ourselves with it, we become channels for its expression. So, of course, understanding love and its principle is one thing, but, living it out in traffic and grocery stores and family dinners and at work, that's where the real work begins, right? So I have a friend, a minister, who told me recently that one of their preferences is they totally zone out when someone on the platform reads anything, a quote, a story, a poem. They leave their body. However, I am going to read a poem right now. It's a little bit long, but it's funny, and it's poignant, and it's right on topic. So please stay in your bodies and stick with me, okay? So I'm going to pick this up because I have to read. I didn't memorize the whole poem. Nope, that's not going to work. No, thank you. I'll just do this. I'll just move it over here so I can look down at it, okay? Okay. Please enjoy a story by John Rodell. The cocktail party is moving all around me, while I am sitting awkwardly in a chair in the corner of the room, writing this poem out on my phone. Everyone is so excited about the weather and their latest vacation and the newest cars and how they plan on voting. I'm a little jealous because right now I am only obsessed with the encounter I had yesterday when my neighbor knocked on my front door to ask me why I am letting my weeds overtake my planters in my front and backyard. You could grow a really vibrant garden, he offered, without asking. I responded with a melodramatic thoughtfulness, like I was considering a treaty that had geopolitical ramifications. He pointed to his row of flowers that were exploding out of his nearby garden like fireworks. His carefully curated bouquet looked like they were ready to be pinup models in a flower magazine. His garden was so organized, his flowers were so uniform, the petals of each bud standing at firm attention like boot camp privates, waiting for inspection from their foamy-mouthed drill sergeant. I could not believe how incredible the posture of my neighbor's flowers were. Then he gestured to my planter that looked like it belonged out in front of a haunted house. He asked me to imagine how beautiful my planter would look if I would just put a little effort into them. Well, I'm not an expert on psychology. What I think he meant to say was, imagine how much more beautiful my planters would look if you put some effort into yours. I replied, now reflecting on the idea that my lack of a green thumb was impacting the property value of those around me. My neighbor walked over and ran his hand over the vines and blooming weeds in my pink brick planter. I could feel his disappointment growing. You see, these weeds are useless and creating chaos. My neighbor said as he turned back to look at me, his eyes raking over me like a comb through a mop of unkempt hair. Chaos? What a word choice. I love chaos, I thought to myself. If you want, I can show you how to get rid of these flowering weeds, he suggested. I looked at my planter. The vines were sunbathing like they were roses. The blooms of the weeds popping open without any sort of apology. They had no idea they were unwanted. They were just minding their own business, being themselves. I put my hands into my pockets and I secretly dug my finger into my thighs because I knew what I had to say next and I knew how my neighbor would respond. I said, well, maybe since the weeds are flowering, they are actually flowers, I said. I swear I could hear my neighbor's flower gasp. The moment between us took a deep breath. That is an insult to actual flowers, he said with a straight face. I spent the next 5 minutes trying to explain that I wasn't trying to insult his flowers. I just want to make space for the possibility that maybe he shouldn't judge a gardener by their blossoms, and perhaps, just perhaps, one person's weed is another person's wonder. He left the conversation the way he came into it, unannounced. An hour later, I found a huge bottle of weed killer on my porch. My flowering weeds quivered as I picked it up. I winked and told them that they were safe with me. And I brought the bottle of poison inside of my house like an unwanted fruitcake and meditated on all the ways we humans unintentionally pass out poison to kill what annoys us in each other. Now, a day later, I am here like a bit of a misfit at this cocktail party among all of these flowering people who seem to be much further ahead of me on the board game of this existence. Everyone is exchanging stories of job promotions and their kids' test scores. And I'm sitting here on my phone writing about blooming weeds who didn't ask to be called useless. They just asked to sunbathe under the same light as roses do, and I think that is just so lovely. Thanks. Thank you. Good one. John O'Donohue said, "To love the unlovable is to rise above the limitations of our own judgments and see the humanity in everyone, recognizing that love is a choice we make, not just a feeling that we have." So what are the reasons we struggle to love certain individuals? Well, sometimes it's a preconceived notion or a judgment, a personal bias. These often just show up as a filter that we don't even question. We're not aware of it. Perhaps we see someone who is unhoused, and we decide what their story is, but we haven't spoken to them. We don't know how they got there. Or we meet someone who we decide is prosperous because they come from a well-known family, but we don't know their story. So these are just an example of some preconceived notions, and they don't leave room for expansion and love. They don't leave room for curiosity. And then there are people in our lives already, in our families, coworkers, that just annoy us. And do we have to like everyone, Drew? Do we have to like everyone? No, we don't have to like everyone. But it's valuable to detach from our preference and allow people to be who they are. So I recently completed a course taught by the amazing and brilliant Reverend Dr. Michelle Wadley called Forgiveness. And as the universe loves a good synchronicity, many of the things that I learned in this course align with this topic. One of the first things she told us was this. I'm sure all of you have done a lot of forgiveness work and throughout your studies and self-discovery. And this was a good assumption since this was a class for ministers. So we had all done a lot of work. And when she said, but no matter how much work you've done to forgive, you're not done. Ah, ouch. So yeah, we went deep. But she had 3 rules that she started with that I want to share. I think they've been really helpful for me, and I want to share them with you. The first one is non-judgment. This is a spiritual practice rule. Judgment falls into this category of discernment and assessment, which you really can't get through the day without, right? It's very important that we make judgment about if I can walk down this stair, et cetera. Am I hungry? Assessing things. But for this non-judgment, we're talking about judgment where we appoint blame or fault or just find someone unlikable. The practice is to watch our minds. The practice is to catch ourselves and either just notice it, stop it, or actually reframe it. But really the key, the first part, is just that. So, for instance, I used to fly a lot with in the video game world as an executive producer for work. And I was on a flight, and I was tired, and I had to go right to a meeting from this flight. And I was planning on taking a nap when I got on the plane. And wouldn't you know it, a little family sat behind me with a baby, Haley, and and the baby started crying really loud and long. And I had this thought of like, why can't the parents do something? And I was getting annoyed. And then, I had that moment again of, I jumped to judgment and unlikability. I have grown kids. They're both right here. And they were babies, and they cried on planes. And I just stopped my judgment. I remember how much I tried to get them to stop, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do on an airplane. And I just immediately was filled with compassion and love. And so it's just catching that moment and realizing that we are aligned. The second rule is non-gossip. Ooh, that one's hard. Gossip allows us to be an expert in areas where we are not. And also, I think what I have to admit is there's an energetic charge to gossiping. I feel like the gossip type information is currency. And it's like I have inside information. And I'm not going to say evil, but it's like a sort of mischievous charge, And so I think it's hard for us. We accept gossip in our society, and it's hard to stop ourselves from talking about people when they're not in the room about things we shouldn't be talking about. But it's very important because it takes us out of alignment with love and puts us into alignment with separation. There's a couple things if I'm about to talk to my friend Rose here about somebody, and I'm going to ask myself these questions. Why am I sharing this? Why am I telling Rose this? Is it something she needs to know? Would I say it if the person was in the room? But that's number one. Yeah. And could this cause unnecessary harm? So think about those things when we're about to, if we're sharing information, it's one thing. Kristen S. was the wonderful vocalist today. That's not gossiping. That's information, and it's complimentary, and yes, I would say it if she was in the room. So, you can kind of test this out when you're thinking of talking about someone. And the third is non-complaining. So, no, can't do that one. It's not it's not the same as avoiding asking for what we need. It's very important to ask for what we need. But one of the things that Reverend Michelle said is just replace the word complaining with creating. We're creating when we complain. We're creating. And so that's a really another thing to think about. And these practices, they lead to a kind of spiritual freedom. And that's a very beautiful thing, to have spiritual freedom. And it opens up everything, your whole life. I've been working with all three of them. I have not been perfect. And as Michelle said, not necessary. I'm not asking anyone to be perfect. Just asking us to watch our minds. What are we thinking? What are we saying? What's coming out of our mouths? And really, is that love? Is that coming from love? So I do want to take a moment for a quick exercise. So if you all could get comfortable and close your eyes, if you are okay with that, or just look down. Let's take a deep breath together. Just relax. Think of one person that challenges you, works your last nerve, or someone that has annoyed you deeply. See them. Now drop from your head into your heart space. Feel your heart light. It's there, strong. Seeing that person, surround them in your heart light. Take a breath. Open your eyes when you're ready. That single little act starts the process of decoding. Another way to decode the unlikable is active listening, curiosity. Really seek to understand, find common ground, like me remembering my experience on the flight. I didn't need to find the common ground by talking to that person, but I had to remember, I've experienced that. I know what they're going through. I have compassion. My son, Dominic, is really good at this. He's in the corner with the pink hat. When he meets someone with opposing views to his, rather than jumping to defense of his opinion or position, he asks questions. It's amazing to witness this openness and connection that he makes. If he gets in an Uber, he doesn't sit in the back and look at his phone. He interviews the driver, wants to know about their lives, where are they coming from, what's important to them. And it opens him up. And he learns so much, and he opens up his mind and his heart this way. It's very beautiful. Emma Curtis Hopkins said, "There is good for me, and I ought to have it." When that consciousness, we extend that consciousness to others, we see that there is good for them, and they ought to have it. So I'd like to close with a brief story called The Prodigal Sister. Two sisters, Anna and Claire, have grown apart over the years. Claire struggled with addiction, and Anna, the responsible one, the spiritual one, had long felt, disappointed, distant, embarrassed. Family gatherings were tense. Anna told herself she had forgiven Claire, but truthfully, she had just built up a spiritual wall. Kind of tidy, polite, cold. Then one day, Claire called her sister from a treatment center and asked if Anna would come and visit her. She didn't want to. But something whispered, "See her as spirit sees her," and reluctantly she went. When she walked into the room, Claire looked small, fragile, and scared. Not the defiant, disruptive sister she was used to. And instead of a long lecture, which she had rehearsed on the way there, she just said, "You're my sister, and I love you." And for the first time in years, Claire looked up and said, "Thank you. That's just all I needed to hear." And they cried together, and in that moment, years of judgment just dissolved. Nothing outwardly miraculous happened. There was no dramatic healing, no instant restoration. The love that had been blocked by resentment began to flow again. It was remembered, it was released, it was realized. We teach that love is the healing power of the universe. When Anna opened her heart, she stopped seeing her sister as a problem to fix and began seeing her as the presence of God in process. That shift didn't just change their relationship, it changed Anna's understanding of what love really is. So when we choose love, we shift the atmosphere around us. Our homes change, our communities soften, and the world tilts toward healing. So we've explored the nature of love and faced the challenge of the unlikable, whether it's the woman in the grocery store, the boss at work, the annoying neighbor, someone on a plane. Every moment is a chance to decode the unlikable and rediscover love. Imagine if every one of us could be a light this week, just 1 degree more patient, more forgiving, more open this week. Can you imagine the ripple that we would have, everyone in this room? So before we go into prayer, I just am going to invite you to repeat a couple of affirmations with me. You can put your hand on your heart if you like, and just repeat after me. I am willing to bring love to every corner of my life. I am willing to bring love to every corner of my life. I see the divine even in the difficult. I see the divine even in the difficult. I am a living expression of compassion. Know that as you leave here today, you carry the vibration of peace with you. You are decoding the unlikable by being love itself. That's where your freedom begins. So let's pray. Knowing that Spirit is right here, right now, present, and that it is compassion, it is love, it is release of non-judgment, release of gossip, release of complaining. It is all it is. It is the oneness that connects us. It is the oneness that moves us. It is the divine. I know that as each of us go out into the world this week, we don't go out to fix or to change. We go out to reveal, to recognize and remember love as us and those around us. I'm so grateful for this time together. I'm grateful for all of the love in this room. And I just release my word into that divine love consciousness that only does one thing. It says yes. And so it is. Thank you.
The nearly Reverend Rachel. Well, beautiful. Thank you. So clear and so simple, and yet we need to practice it. Rachel, thank you so much for that powerful reminder of releasing judgment and getting rid of that block to remembering that we're one. It's just the art of remembering. So for our greatest